There's an important economic dynamic to this. So we've mentioned a few times that so much of the initial goal of coming to the U.S. or anybody who's migrating to a different country around the world is often doing so seeking work, and there's often employers who are looking for workers. Unfortunately, there's a fair amount of exploitation in that process, whether it's underpaying or improperly paying or not paying at all.
Right.
What were some of the experiences of the folks you interviewed as they got into the workforce in the United States?
Oh, I could talk about this probably for months on end. It was the really the focus of a lot of the field work. So the observations that I did, whether it was at church or, I went to a few English language, adult English language classes, or the support group that I observed for the full 6 years that I was doing this research. The experiences of workplace abuse, labor and wage exploitation, and also the physical and emotional manifestations of workplace violence were constantly being discussed. Um, Young factory workers would talk about, the migraines, the earaches, the allergies, the sneezing, the spine pain, not being able to take breaks, doors being locked behind them to make it look like the warehouse was vacant, abandoned, but there are 30, 40 garment workers in the dark sewing clothes. The sort of piece rate arrangement of garment manufacturing where people are paid per button, per sleeve, a few cents for every denim pant that is sewn. So the calculations that young people are making throughout the day, where they think if I want to make $100 by the end of this day, I need to sew 350 garments. And they're doing that work, which is why they skip the breaks, right? They don't use the restroom, things like that. Fact, the car washers would talk about not being paid per hour or per car, but by tips. So if they didn't get a tip from the person that they were handing the keys off to, they weren't getting paid that day. And that's not something those of us who get our cars washed really know. So maybe we think like, oh, they're getting paid already. Why am I going to tip them for doing their job? But that isn't how immigrant car washers are treated, or weren't at the time that I was doing this research. I had a case of a young person who was working in the downtown Los Angeles flower market, and he loved that job. He said he was getting paid a lot less than his previous job as a restaurant worker. He was a food preparer, so he would make all the sauces and put all of the various condiments and different dressings on dishes as they went out. His employer asked him at one point, "How much is your rent?" And he was maybe 16 at the time, and he told the employer, I name him Gonzalo. Gonzalo told his employer, I pay this much in rent. So the man paid him that exact amount so that Gonzalo could pay his rent. What ended up happening over the, I think, 2 years that Gonzalo was working in that restaurant kitchen is he was owed $9,000 of wages that Gonzalo calculated. So Gonzalo went to the labor commissioner's office in Los Angeles. He asked me to go with him and can you tell me what they're saying if they only speak English? And he was able to recover $19,000 of stolen wages when the labor commissioner got involved and started to really try to understand the case. All of that money went to Guatemala so that his younger brothers would not migrate as unaccompanied children after him. So even when Gonzalo had made this, you know, flood of money that could have really changed his life in LA, he was thinking, how do I make this work for my family, and sent all of it there. So things like that come up all the time. And again, the like enduring embodied effects of exploitation, the anxiety that young people feel, the fear, the headaches that they would talk to me about, things like ulcers, right? Chemical burns, all kinds of things that show up on their body, if not because of the work directly, like an injury that happens at work, the emotional, like the psychosomatic manifestations, right? Of knowing that you are being exploited and abused, and that despite all of your effort all day long, you're not really getting ahead. You're just barely getting by.